in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
You hear me?
I can. What's happening?
What is up? Is it just my StreamYard, or do we just have these two long panels covering the background? That is interesting.
Two long panels covering the background.
Okay. Okay. That seems to has been okay. Good. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Wednesday, 6:30 Pacific Time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Every Wednesday, we talk about getting ish done. See, last week we talked about craftsmanship, which has to do with action, the primacy of action. Today we're going to talk about leadership, and let's just let me go ahead and let me ask you. This is an overused word, especially in American parlance and American corporate parlance, culture, whatever. Like to pull out the leadership word a lot. And I don't think that it is characterized in terms of what they say, but they just kind of overuse it without. What are your thoughts about the word leadership here? And what do you think about what I just said? Is it overused? Do you kind of hear that a lot? Leadership this, leadership that.
Yeah, way too much about leadership. Yeah, way too much. And really in my mind, I think other than just kind of understanding styles of leadership, as far as how you orient yourself to whoever your boss is, and understand and interpret their behavior. Other than that, and then also other than understanding what kind of leader you are, and then what the sort of blind spots and tendencies and all that, that's really that's the end of the necessity of constant blathering about leadership.
Excellent. And today we're going to talk more about the latter. We're going to talk about self-examination.
Blathering. All right.
Yeah, we'll talk about you looking at yourself, not necessarily.
Well, you are the host. You are the host, so the blathering that goes without saying, right?
That's part of the job.
That's right.
That is part of the job. But basically, talking about um, the idea of leadership. Um, and okay, so let me say this and then see what you have to say. Leadership obviously doesn't have anything to do with a title or some kind of external authority. When I say obviously, I mean, okay, it's not obvious, but if you want to constrain leadership to a narrow definition, we're going to say that it is about people following you. Okay. It's like people follow you. That's the leadership quality. If we're talking about just human to human, mammal to mammal interaction, forget whether somebody has given you the authority. Okay. Because then that authority is the leader in some kind of way. Okay. But for you as a human being, both leading others and also leading yourself. Okay. I find that that will be the main thing. So that's number one thing. And then number two, I find that decisiveness, and I'm biased in this regard, right? We all have our different crutches and we all have our different strengths. Decisiveness is one of the most important aspects of leadership, um, and success. Okay, leadership and success in getting things done. You have to be decisive. You got to decide. Okay, it's not just good externally, but if you're not decisive, you can't even lead yourself. You know, you're definitely going to be needing other people to kind of lead you. I'm not okay. Look, not everyone is equally decisive, and again, I'm saying I'm biased in this particular regard because decisiveness and what I call judgment is one of my, shall we say, strengths, if you want to call it a strength. It's one of my things. Like I know very clearly, okay, perhaps to a fault, the things that I like and the things I don't like, what I like to do, what the kinds of things I mess with and things I don't mess with. It's very clear to me. And I decide and I decide and I decide constantly, all the time. And I can't stand, indecisiveness, generally speaking. So, what do you think about those two things, which I just said that, on the mammal to mammal level, leadership is about whether people follow you or not, and those characteristics which will make people follow you, of which decisiveness is an important one, both for leading yourself and leading others, and also with regards to succeeding in general.
Yeah, I mean, why is somebody going to follow you if you have no track record? Um, if you don't have a vision, that people can get on board with, that's part of the following part. Um, and if you're not willing to make decisions, something I always something that I always struggle with is when I have ever been in a situation where someone that's making a whole lot more money than I'm making in the same organization complains to me about the kind of decisions that they have to make. That's why you're getting paid. You paid me that money and you won't hear me complain at all. I mean, I might explain to you some of the nuance associated with this going with decision A versus decision B, but you're not going to hear me complaining about it. That's just not going to happen. I mean, so yeah, because you paying me for that. I'm getting paid for that. So that's always like a strange thing. It's like you're making 4 or 5 times the amount of money I'm making, and I still have to hear you complain. How much more money do you need to be paid so that I don't have to hear the person that is supposed to be steering the ship complain?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very well put. So we're going to be sharing this video here. We're going to be reacting to this video. I haven't watched it. I just looked at the title and I was like, oh, good. And I like that Patrick Bet-David is still making these kinds of videos. And he's not going full Alex Jones, but shout out to him. Shout out to him. Um, but the whole decisiveness thing
Shout
is,
out to Alex Jones. Was that a shout
uh,
out to Alex Jones?
Yeah, all of them. Alex Jones, Kanye West,
That's right.
Hitler.
Whoever's making money. Whoever's getting ish done. This is a shout out to you. Personal shout out.
The decisiveness thing is something that you will find is in short supply, right? You just described somebody, right? That, or you just give an example of somebody who might be in a position where you would think that they would be, decisive, okay with making decisions and such. But then again, here's the thing. Okay, this is the flip side of what I'm saying, or it's the same thing to say that a lot of people are not comfortable with people whom are comfortable making decisions. Okay, right? So maybe him complaining is some kind of weird. It'll still be bad on his part, right? Somebody's complaining about making a decision. It may be one of these kind of bad. Let me commiserate with you about. Oh, I'm not so comfortable making decisions because people do want to tar and feather decisive people, right? They're like, oh, that Steve Jobs guy always making decisions, like that kind of thing. There is the people want to do the hemming and hawing and the on the one hand and on the other hand, and let's see what everybody thinks and all that kind of stuff. So, but my original point is decisiveness is in short supply, generally speaking. And I would attribute whatever success that whatever has gotten me this far has to do with decisiveness. With regards to other leadership qualities, I'm more on the charismatic side than the charming side. I've learned to work charm in there, right? But charisma is the main thing, which kind of goes hand in hand with that whole judgment. Like I make judgments, I have very clear judgments about stuff. It's it's you quickly know what I'm about, what I'm into, what I like, what I don't tolerate, right? That kind of thing. I don't like BANs, that kind of thing, right? You quickly determine, okay, this is what this guy about, and that's not a charming thing. That's a charismatic thing. But on the side of decisive,
wait a minute. But what's a BAN? I don't know what that is. What's a BAN?
A BAN is a bitch ass N word. I'm being nice today. I'm not gonna say the. Yeah. So, but the decisiveness will be the main thing, because some people are like, oh, well, but you're smart. It's like, well, yeah, if you're working in the right directions and putting yourself in the right rooms, everyone there is smart. Okay. And your extra 10 or 20, even 20 IQ points is not going to be the deciding factor in everything. You know what I mean? It's not everything is a IQ contest at that level. In other words, people are smart enough, generally speaking, if you're pushing yourself in the right directions, right, to be effective. And even if you're smarter than them, that's not going to be the thing that makes a difference. But I find that this decisiveness thing is a rare bird. But anyways, let's go ahead and start this video here with Mr. Patrick Bet-David.
All right, we're going to talk about 10 different signs that you're afraid to lead. Not whether you're ready to lead or not, because you're never fully going to be ready, but 10 signs that you're actually afraid of leading. Okay, so fear number one. You are afraid of making a decision.
Is one of these, I just want to know, is one of these checking your shorts? Is that one of the signs that you're afraid to lead?
That's checking your YouTube shorts or checking?
No. No, checking. checking. All right, keep going. I'm sorry,
man. That the sole responsibility could end up being on you. So you're always wishy-washy with a decision. God forbid if it's your decision that possibly goes wrong. Here's the reality of it. As a leader, the shot caller, you have to call shots. It doesn't mean all your shots are going to be good or bad, but your team's going to respect the fact that you called the shot, you executed, and you took the responsibility, and you're okay with that. Eventually, your percentage of making better decisions will go higher. But if you're afraid of actually calling the shot, and your decisions could be a bad decision, you're always afraid of that, you're never going to be leading a big crowd. Sign number 2, you
Okay, so they're talking about the fear of decisions, which, by the way, the thing that comes to mind for me is that this is a misunderstanding of decisions. But anyways, go ahead. What do you think about that, being afraid of taking the responsibility because the decision might be wrong?
I mean, I understand the, wanting to be right, wanting to make a good decision. People are looking at you. You want a certain kind of outcome. But that's why they paying you more money. That's why you got stock options and all that stuff. And so, if that's you, I'm just saying. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do stuff that's not going to work. And frankly, you could make a decision that gets you fired. You could make a decision that gets you demoted. You can make a decision that confirms all of your fears. It confirms, all of the questions that people have about your leadership. But hey, that's what it is. I mean, take that on, understand that that's what the deal is. You have to be willing to go in a particular direction. I have look, I'm sure people have questioned decisions that I've made. And, and I try to explain why it is that I'm making certain decisions, but they still may not rock with it. But hey, that's what it is. What are you going to do?
He put it in the context of the team. Let's say the team, being okay with you making decisions and stuff and such. If I go back to the individual again, because I think that perhaps what's most important, or shall I say what's underlying, what's at the base, is your ability in this decision aspect of leadership is you and yourself, leading your life, right? And you have to make decisions. And the quicker you make the decision, the quicker you can learn if it's right or wrong. Now you have information that, hey, northeast is not the right direction. Maybe we need to pivot a little bit. I have a sense that maybe we need to pivot a little bit more north, or maybe we need to reverse all of us, and go southwest, right? But there's a misunderstanding about decisiveness and decisions versus right decision. And the most successful people out there will tell you, especially when it comes to in the world of chaos, in the world of doing something new, right? In the world of, let's say, building something. You're going to build this company. You're going to try something new. You're going to create a product. You're going to go out there in the market. You're going to come out of your father's tent and go to the land that God is going to show you. In that world, decisiveness is I'm repeating myself now, regardless of what I said in terms of what the predictors of success, making a decision and then another decision and another decision and another decision. That is a huge predictor of who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful. Not whether or not your decisions are correct, because chaos, bro. Chaos is out there, especially if you're really out there doing something real, which the solutions are not clear. The landscape changes. The market changes. The travails that 2023 is going to hit you with, as opposed to what 2022 hit you with. You don't know what those are going to be yet, but you just decide, then you decide again, and then you decide again and again and again. So decisiveness versus, the right decision. I think that people are a little bit confused about that. If you decide often enough, you will get to the right decisions. Okay. And it's not about, nailing it. Yeah, so I think that is 100% key there. But what, just, do you have any comment on that, on basically making decisions, the frequency with which you can make decisions, the speed at which you can make decisions, right? Because something happens in the market Something happens in your industry, something happens in your life, and you can sit there twiddle your thumbs for 2 weeks or a month, but the other guy next to you is like, boom, I've decided I'm going to Florida. Boom, I've decided we're shutting down that division. Boom, I've decided we're firing this person, right? Over the course of 2 years, can you imagine how much further along the person who decides, forget whether it was the right thing to go to Florida or to fire, it doesn't matter, right? But what are your thoughts on that, and with regards to people's understanding of this decision thing, as opposed to the fear of making the right decision?
Now, this is interesting because, so obviously, the sort of nuance of this is, where's the line? Okay, so the sort of intersection between, or the, where's the nexus? Where's the overlap? Where's the, between the quality of the decision and the speed of the decision, right? So like, where is that at? And that's an interesting problem, because I see, okay, so I see, okay, so let's pivot a little bit to, like, relationships, right? So when you're trying to pick a mate, you're like, okay, I've got these 3 candidates that are really good, and one of them is X, Y, and Z, whatever. And now, say if you make a quick decision based on booty, and then that blows up in your face. Now, I'm doing stuff that's like, this is really wild. This is not really what happens in the real world, right? You make a booty decision, you prioritize that blows up in your face, versus making the correct decision, and you're trying to build a legacy, and like this, you need the kind of person that you can actually trust and depend on, like this. How long should you take to make that decision? I am a fan of making that decision, because I think commitment rules out distractions. It removes distractions. It gives you a particular direction. You're going, okay, well, good, bad, or indifferent, we going down this way now. And yeah, you can make adjustments as you're going, but look, certain things are already decided. At least you can keep moving. So I like that aspect of making the decision, but there's also, like, where is the balance between the quality of the decision versus the speed of the decision? What do you think of that?
That's a good thing. That's a good question. Now, in your furthering of the idea of quality versus speed, you introduced something which your basic intelligence will need to help you with, which is the type of decision. There are certain kinds of things where it's like, okay, this is a one-time decision for a lifetime, where you can afford to wait. Where a decision is, there is always the do nothing decision, right? The do nothing option, and that's not indecisive. Okay, that is, we're not doing anything right now. Okay, so there's a difference between twiddling your thumb for 2 weeks versus, we're going to wait for 2 weeks because I need some more data. We're going to wait for 2 weeks because I need the wind speed to change before I fire this shot, right? Those kinds of things. So there is the decision where, okay, you can afford to wait because of the time consequences of this. It's like, this is a decision for that'll affect all of eternity. Hence, we can wait. We can gather information. So that's the aspect where it's like, okay, you got to be intelligent enough to be able to have these different categories of decision. And then overall, in the category of decision where it's like, okay, uh, like an AI, or like, either machine learning, or just think of moving around and pivoting, learning by trial and error and experimenting, tinkering. There are many things where, okay, we can afford to tinker, we can afford to try and move on. Then I would argue that the more you tinker, the better the quality of your decisions are going to be. If, again, the basics of the intelligence and stuff are there. Because at this point, we kind of started out by saying, look, we're assuming you're smart enough. We're assuming all these other things. Now we're talking about leadership, which is an important aspect of which is decisiveness. So on the one hand, you have to be able to differentiate different types of decisions with regards to risk and with regards to time. And then I would say the quality of your decisions improve over time, both the quality of each decision, because the idea is you don't make one, you know that you're going to make this decision and you're going to pivot tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Elon Musk, for example, he came into Twitter and he did something which many people have been sitting on their thumbs. Many CEOs in Silicon Valley have been sitting, waiting. What did he do? He fired people. They had too many people, all these companies, okay? And Elon Musk was the first. And then you notice everybody else started like, oh. And as a matter of fact, it's not just, looking at the correlation. You can now see them saying it. The CEO of Salesforce, this kind of Mahalo, Hawaii guy, we're constantly talking about family, calls it the Salesforce family. One of those guys, right? Always very suspicious to me. I'm like, I don't like working in those environments. Like, I want to be in the heat.
Does he have a ponytail?
Be... Do you know him? I think his name is Mr. Benioff, Michael Benioff or something. Michael Benioff is out there talking about family and all that kind of stuff. And then recently, after he started laying people off, he's like, hey, we're asking ourselves, do we need to unleash our inner Elon Musk? Elon Musk just came in and boom, I'm going to pull the trigger on this. Right? I'm gonna pull the trigger on that. And then on the smaller decisions that he made, many people were like, oh my God, this, that, and the other. It's like, dude, and then he pivoted because he knows that's how stuff happens. That's how you get things done. And then over the course of a month, he would have pivoted to a finer quality decision as opposed to you trying to aim for it. So one aspect is obviously, quality, the types of decisions you need to know, but also understanding that this decision thing is like a fine, you're grinding down something. You go with coarse sandpaper, and then you get to finer and finer sandpaper. And hey, I came up with a quality decision as a result of a series of decisions. Does that, I think that does add to your, trying to figure out the nexus between this. It doesn't quite give you a arithmetic mean like, oh, it's between this and this, here's the nexus, but
yeah no, it's more about
the frequency of decisions will lead to
it's more about acknowledging that this is not a it's not what am I trying to say? It's not ones and zeros, right? It's not on or off. There can be a lot of nuance associated with this, and so part of what is going to make you a good leader is being able to quickly judge where the balance point is in any given situation. So I used of course the relationship thing, as a, whatever. That's just a gimme. I threw that out there because that's obviously something that's not it's not something that you should decide quickly on, right? Now, but also by what you're saying, as far as making better decisions as you go, I'm in my second marriage. It's going better than the first one. So if you're willing to risk all your assets, you can, you figure it out as you go. All right, keep going.
Yeah, the shout out to Snuggles, okay, hitting us with the you went from a Android phone to to an iPhone, to an Apple product, didn't you, Snuggles? You used to be the $5 super chat king or queen or whatever you are.
Monarch.
Now
Monarch.
Monarch. Now you're the 4.99 monarch because Apple is taking that 1 cent from us. But shout out to you. Thank you very much. So let us continue. Again, we're talking about leadership. We're reviewing this video by Patrick Bet David. A like and please share the stream. This is Getting Ish Done, where we indeed talk about how to get things done in many different regards. And leadership here is about the qualities that will allow you to be followed, including you following yourself. Okay. And decisiveness is a big one. It is one of the rare ones. It's one of the ones where if you improve upon that, you're going to find yourself being head and shoulders above people, because it's not about the intelligence and the qualifications and the passion and the hard work. Because again, if you're working towards the right direction and you're pushing yourself into the right rooms, everyone there is intelligent. They got the qualifications, they got the passion, they got the name recognition, maybe, and all those other kinds of things. But one thing you'll find is decisiveness is rare. People are scared of making decisions, and it's because of that risk thing. So you got to be willing to risk. Hopefully, being afraid, and I think point one was about being afraid of the risk that comes with decisions. But let's continue. It says here, you tell a different story by spinning it. Well, that's not good.
Right.
Tell a different story.
Are you there?
And so I understand why you guys are
Yeah,
so
it's
upset.
all.
I'm also upset.
It was all
sometimes when I deal
borging
with
and
them,
stuff.
you're
You
not-
might want to replay that section.
Gotcha. Let's go back. But a little bit interesting. Let's see. But you can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, this spinning thing is a little interesting because I find it. Well, I find it. Well, one of my skills, let's say, is this kind of it's not necessarily spinning, but I find that there's always a way to put your point to somebody. um, it is something that I think I'm particularly good at, anyways. Right? Just put it out there. Like I think I'm quite good. Perhaps people might call it communication skills or whatever the hell it may be, right? But the idea that you can always stop, think, get intuitive, and see how you can present some piece of information in a way that is both truthful, direct, but that kind of avoids whatever kind of issues you may have. You may be out there. Let's say you're an agent. You're going to be showing apartments to somebody, and some of the owners of one of the owners of some of the apartments has told you, hey, show them these ones, don't show them the other one, right? And some idiots will go out there. I'm saying this particular example because actually Kaizo is moving in Kenya to a different place in Nairobi, right? And some lady
But
who's showing him
let's test the internet over there.
yeah, let's see.
So maybe he'll be able to actually cam up then.
Yeah, who knows? We will. I won't hold my breath. Not gonna hold my breath. But this lady decided to kind of lie to him that hey, these are the only apartments we have. Okay, now that's just a lack of what I would call creativity, because creativity is part of what makes me very confident that no matter what, you can kind of spin it, but still be truthful. So if I were that lady, I would sit and I would think, okay, what do I want? What and how can I share perhaps what I want with this with Kaizo, right? How can I tell Kaizo, look, right now I'm incentivized to tell you these to give you these two apartments. And as a matter of fact, here's how I can sweeten the deal for you. Or as a matter of fact, the management I will make sure I'm going to put something in it for you. I'm going to put skin in the game. I'm going to give you some better management if you do this. Or this owner is actually better. Give him some truth about the owner of these two units, right? Rather than just say, oh, it's only these two units we have. That makes so you're telling the person the truth, but you're telling them because it's not that crazy, like people understand that people have incentives out there. You be like, hey Kaizo, you want me to succeed, right? You want me to succeed? I want you to succeed. Look, I'm highly incentivized to show you these two units. Here are the blah 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 with it, knowing fully well a Kaizo might decide not to go with the units that I'm incentivized to show him. Because guess what? He didn't go with the units anyways because he was like, because he knew that she was lying, right? Okay. So, but guess what? When you lie, now Kaizo will never go back to you for business. But if I told Kaizo the truth, like, hey, I'm incentivized this way, and even if he didn't pick it, he's gonna be like, I like that agent. If Kaizo is anything like me, anyways, I like that agent. They were able to pull back the curtain. They seem to know what's going on. They have the inside juice somehow. Like I'm gonna be able to. I want to work with them in the future. Or Kaiser might just decide like, hey, you know what? Let me just go with this person's apartment, and throw them a bone because I trust them, right? So that story just came to mind when it comes to this spin thing. You can spin if you have the right kind of creativity, okay? But if you don't have that, please don't lie. All right? Don't lie. What I just called spinning was not lying. It was a way to communicate the truth, but with a little bit of charm, with a little bit of sharing of profits, with a little bit of understanding that you're talking to somebody else that wants something, that needs something. What do they want, right? And how can I communicate
Yeah,
it to them?
maybe a different terminology could make that uh, clearer what it is that you're saying. Because some folks they hear the word spin and they just assume that it's nefarious and oh, you're just telling us to lie not about the big things, but only about the
Mhm.
subtle stuff. But really, what you're saying is this is about making decisions about how much transparency how you should that you should have. Giving whatever the scenario is, if you show more transparency about, well, here's an issue that I have, here's a reason that I'd like you to take this from me, here's, and here's how this can work out, as a mutually beneficial situation, potentially, you know, if you talk that way, then it's less about um then it'll seem less like uh you understand. I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. And one thing is because people don't like to think, people don't like to stop and go prepare. Because the kind of thing you just said is hard to pull off in real time.
Oh yeah, in the
Okay.
moment. Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah.
But the thing's like, dude, I know this lady had some time, okay,
Right.
to think. So I always say, like, 'cause I had a meeting today, right? And when I'm pitching something, and I always stop. Do I know what I'm pitching? Of course, I know what I'm pitching, but I always stop every time to ask myself the same questions over and over again. What is my intention with this meeting? Okay, and then I write it down. Like, okay, I want this thing out of them. How do I get this thing out of them? I have to know these things about them. The whole time putting myself in their shoes, knowing that I'm asking something of them. Okay. And then I'm spinning and spinning and spinning, not wrong word, right? But thinking in my head, like, how do I present this thing using a set of questions and things like that to unearth and to be able to clearly know make them feel like I'm acknowledging them and all these kinds of things. Every time I ask that, it's not just a you walk in and boom. Now, okay, because I'm doing, and I guess part of the kind of selling that I do, because it's not transactional, right? If it's transactional, you could just knock, give your pitch, knock again, give your pitch, simple. But when you're doing something that's more complex, more higher dollar, more involving an enterprise, multiple decision maker, you're kind of selling the whole thing to a whole group of people, and it's business to business. You gotta be very good at, from scratch every time, storyboard a conversation, right? And I think some people just have I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why they don't sit down and storyboard a conversation before they actually go and have it. Let me see if it'll play this time. Let me see.
Example, your boss is going to ask you, your CEO is going to ask you, yeah, we need you to this conversation with the client or deploy this reporting partner. And you go in and you don't say anything that you were supposed to do, and you actually took the side of the vendor or the customer. You're like, yeah, I agree with, well, you know how it is sometimes when you're dealing with them, they're kind of tough to work with. Trust me, I see it as well myself. And, so I understand why you guys are so upset. I'm also upset sometimes when other people upset, but let me go back to talk to them. Then you come and you say, so let me tell you what I told them. I told them, and I said, you don't, you're worried of having the real conversation, and you're like the guy that said, I wonder, I came back because that's the real. So the person you're reporting to can give you feedback so you can improve. A sign that you're afraid to leave.
What are your thoughts there?
Okay, so some of it borged and stuff, but and I'm wondering, can you reduce the quality of the video?
Resolution? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. You can go down. Yeah. Go down to 240.
Nice. The good stuff.
140. No, actually, go down to 144.
All right.
Yeah. Go down to 144.
Oh, what the hell?
Because I think I think that's going to fix the I think that'll fix the issue. Oh, I think you just went back up to something. All right. Okay. Yeah, and it's actually buffering faster, I can see. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I maybe the terminology maybe isn't the best. It's not the best terminology, but I agree with what he's saying. Because again, we're not really saying we're not really saying intentionally mislead for the sake of a particular agenda that you have. That's not, because that's the way that people hear the word spin. Because you think of media spin, that's not really what he means. He just means, you try to, I don't know, there's like a human thing in there. I understand. I have the same issue with them. They kind of jerk me around too, but let me take that from you. Let me see if I can work. So there's ways to like nuance it. So yeah.
And then you go back and you tell the other people you go like, it's okay if you go and you do the human thing with those people, with the client or whomever you were supposed to talk to, but then don't come back and say, oh, I gave him what for, like, no, now you're now
you're Michael Scott.
Yeah, and
so yeah, there's an episode of The Office where so in the beginning there's all this supposed threatening about downsizing. They're always talking about downsizing, and so everybody's like really fearful that he's going to axe their job, and he's like joking about it and stuff or whatever. But anyhow, one time, and it's sort of in the same sort of scenario where he gets on the phone and he pretends like he is calling corporate, and given them a piece of his mind about not, making his employees have to work on Saturday. Now, they were working on Saturday as a way to potentially not have to lay people off. Right. But then he calls in and he gives them, it's like this fake, this fake thing. And he didn't actually call him to do some posturing as if he's some sort of, he has some sort of authority to do that and to sort of try to ingratiate his employees to him, like, oh yeah, this is a good guy. See, he's, he cares about us. But anyhow, yeah, don't do that. That just looks dumb.
People pleaser. Now, this is an interesting one. Before we even play it, I just see it here. People pleaser, which is perhaps it relates a little bit with the last one, but a people pleaser. That's one that so
you're a big people pleaser though, Ike. So this will be a good one for you.
Yeah.
That just comes so naturally to you. It's just pleasing the people.
I just mentioned that I do. I am okay because so like the reason why perhaps the whole with case closed, the reason why the whole moderator thing kind of seemed to naturally, like, it's not just with case closed. Okay, I tend to be a moderator in many many regards in my life, right? So, and it's not because I people please. It's because of the thing I mentioned earlier about being able to communicate things at certain level and always, like, you think can always be resolved. It's hard, like, to find, okay, well, maybe, resolving quantum mechanics with special relativity. Yeah, we haven't done that yet. Okay. But things can generally be resolved. And by resolved, I don't mean, find a perfect solution that's amicable, but you can always step it up a layer, step it up, add an extra dimension where you find complementarity, where you see, okay, there is no need to be bumping heads, because if we just go one step above, then we can both operate here, right? There's no need for any of that. Or we move sideways, or we do this, or we do all that kind of stuff. So lacking this
diplomatic,
yeah, definitely, it's a diplomatic skill. And if you're not diplomatic, then you may end up being afraid and ending up wanting to do the people pleaser thing, where you want to agree.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think it is, if you don't understand the nuance of this and know the sort of signs of which person you're looking at. I think maybe a normie might look at someone that's diplomatic and think of them as being people pleaser or as being a politician, but it's not really that.
Exactly.
It's really more of a person that has the ability to find the middle ground, be able to see what the hybrid solution is, be able to sort of weigh quickly the merits of both objections, as it were, whatever the issues are, and quickly come up with something that seems to be the thing that is, and it's not an easy skill. It's something you have to develop, and it's not, and I don't see this as being something that a whole lot of people have the capability of doing. There's not necessarily as many people that I think are true diplomats. I take myself as being more diplomatic. I'm not interested in, I don't care if somebody admits that they're wrong or not, or says something suggesting that they have changed, they've bent the knee in some kind of way. I don't really care if people do that. Would it be nice if people, acknowledge that they've changed their mind? Sure. But that's not really for my sake. It's for the sake of the overall sort of discourse, whatever the topic is, and for the sake of people listening, It's good for people to admit things so that other folks can have more transparency into their process and arriving to the conclusions that they come to. It's like rather than sort of covering your tracks, you're letting people see what your tracks are. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But the diplomatic thing is, yeah. I mean, that's the, yeah. It's not necessarily the most common skill. And often a lot of people don't even want to do that. They just want to be in their own camp.
100%. And
Somebody
and
that's, go ahead.
sorry. I mentioned earlier that one of the things, with regards to the question currently on the poll, and by the way, most people in that answered the previous question said that that they are decisive. Good, good, good for them. And some are saying that they're not as decisive as they would like to be. Good for them as well, because they understand that it's important to be decisive. Now I'm asking a second question with regards to charisma and charm, which you can be charismatic like Hitler, or you can be charming like Bill Clinton, right? Different kinds of things that will cause people to follow you. I'm more on the charisma camp because I make judgments and I know where I stand. One of the things that make it difficult for people to do to do the diplomatic thing is because, for example, if you ask me what I think about something, well, I'll tell you. Like, it's not hard to know what I think about something. I'm not gonna do but this person said and that person said, oh, let's look at it. No, 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 no. But when it comes to a group of people, I can parse, as you have mentioned, find middle ground, talk about the different ends that are in pursuit here, and say, hey, here's how you can get X% of your ends. Okay, is this the part rank order your particular ends? I think you can get your most important thing, and he can get his most important thing as well. But if you ask me what I think about a thing, I'll tell you exactly that. Hey, I think you guys are both wrong. I'm going the third way, right? So a lot of times people take the whole diplomatic thing into their own selves as well, where they cannot make a decision. That's when, and I find that crazy. I find that annoying, right? Like, no, you should have your own mind made up, okay? And conversely, when you have your own mind made up, doesn't mean that you cannot be able to mediate between mediate a conversation, like find the different things in there, parse it out, chop it up, put it back together again. Okay, well, cool, well, you need to cook it a little bit more. Let's go, let's add this, let's remove that, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have a clear idea of what needs to be, of what you would do. Okay, so all that is seemingly complicated, but I think that I agree 100% what you said. Not an easy skill. And people pleaser can, in another way in which people pleaser can come from the diplomatic thing, is when you are being diplomatic with regards to giving answers to questions yourself, as opposed to diplomatic with regards to mediating between people. Those are two very different things. But anyways,
yeah, and one thing I think is interesting about this is, so we're both introverts, and introverts seem to know more about extroverts than extroverts know about introverts. When you think about being a people pleaser versus being, what's the other p word that you were using? What was it? Maybe there wasn't another one. No, I'm sorry. Charming versus charismatic.
yeah.
So if you think about this, it seems to me that more introverted folks are going to be more on the charismatic side, and more extroverts are going to be on the more of the charming side. And it seems to me that it may be the case that the more sort of diplomatic kind of folks would be introverts. Now, I'm just making this up as I'm going right now. I don't have any data on this, but what I do when I'm in meetings is I don't say anything because I'm watching people. I'm listening to everything that everybody's saying. I'm sitting in the corner, whatever. I'm, wherever. And I'm only going to say something if somebody specifically asks me to say something. Right? That's just what I do. Now, of course, I'm not running the meeting. If it's a meeting that I'm running, then obviously I'm running the meeting. So I'm talking all the time. Fine. But if it's not my meeting, I'm sitting in there and I'm watching people. That actually puts me in a better position to be able to mediate. Because I'm hearing everything that everybody's saying. And it helps me to be able to actually formulate what a possible middle ground would be even before anybody asks me anything. Mm-hmm. Right. And so rather than having sort of like a clear dog in the fight, I'm just kind of just seeing what the dynamics are. And I don't have to agree with them in order to mediate. So anyhow.
Yeah, what you said. What you said is, it's actually true. And if we, not to get too deep in the weeds on the kind of on the psychology of it, but these are different kind of cognitive capacities that we're talking about here. And some of the introverted cognitive capacities, like which everybody kind of has, it just depends on which one is in your blind spot, which one is on the front, right? So if you have introverted intuition or what is called introverted thinking, those are things that don't need input from the outside, right? So you could just sit there and you can be discerning crap. Okay. There's some people who have to throw stuff out there to bounce it against other people. Mostly extroverted feeling is one of those that it just has to happen that way. Okay. They have to come out and, hey, I did it. What do you think? Like they almost cannot decide. It's almost like their decision mechanism or their thinking mechanism happens externally, right? And it's not very different from the person who does it internally. There's an internal committee in you, right? You have your committee of people in there. You can do that, and it's very comfortable for you. They do the committee outward, and it doesn't even have to be other people. It has to be something external. They have to interact with something. They're bouncing it off of something, right? That's kind of how they operate. Okay, so it is true. And for example, Mark Zuckerberg, people say it's an INTJ, which makes sense, right? And one of the things that people say is this thing that you talked about, which is he just sits there, gets information, right? Does not and people look at like, oh wow, he's so, they look at like some kind of like a moral thing, like he's very humble or whatever. It's like, no, he's just, it's just his personality, dude. He can sit there and listen to all these different people, really get a lot of data and come to a good conclusion. That's one of the superpowers that people say that he has, right? But it is true that yes, introverts can do that thing internally, so they don't have to interact with the outside world as much in order to do the discerning and their thinking and their planning, right? So yes, you're on the right track there. Too much of a people pleaser. Let's finally play it.
3, you are too concerned to please everybody in your life. Let me explain. So, to me, in business relationships, you have 3 different dynamics, okay? You have the dynamic of those above you, you have the dynamic of people at the same level as you, and you have the dynamic of people below you that report to you. Too often, people that are too concerned about pleasing everybody, they are good with the people that report to them. They're good with coworkers, but they're not good up here. And that's a sign that you're never going to end up being here because you don't have the understanding of where these guys are at. So rather than saying, well, if there's a score, we all please people, by the way. I want to please you. You want to please me. You want to please your wife, your husband, your parents, your kids. Everybody. But if the goal is to please 100% of the time, that'll lead it. Those relationship dynamics are different. Sometimes end up saying, well, you know what? You really didn't do your thing. This is the second time you were late. You're always late. Everybody in the company knows you have a reputation for being late. You keep saying you're going to improve there, and you don't. Versus, wink, wink, don't worry about it. I know you live late. You live far from here. You're always late. I got your back. Don't worry about it. You just undermine the person that is saying we got to raise the standard. Hey, the budget. Look, you've gone above the budget by $73,000. This was your budget. Hey, don't worry about it. I got this. Listen, everybody's above budget, and no one's hitting their budget numbers. Don't worry about it. We think it's going to be okay. That's kind of like stealing money from the company because you're afraid of telling people, get your budget together. Or your coworkers, oh, hey, how you doing, man? Everything good? You know, everything good? Oh, yeah, man, he's tough to work with, or she's tough to work with. Instead of saying, hey, they're bitching about the boss, and you are the leader, and you say, I'm sorry, man, I don't feel the way you do. I think that guy's got a very hard job and a hard responsibility. To be him is a lot of pressure. I don't want his job. And he's doing his best, and I think we got to have his back a little bit more. And quite frankly, you don't have his back all the time. You're not that person because you want everybody as your coworker to like you. That's a sign you're afraid of leading. Or this one's going to be tough.
We already did talk a lot about the people pleasing before we started playing it. But one thing that came to mind here was regarding really understanding the responsibility of someone whom is above you in any regard, right? Understanding that the pressure that they're in, and understanding that in the market, a lot of times you simply just have to, and in the world, you simply just have to survive a season, right? You simply just have to bend over and take it. Okay. And that it's fine. It's perfectly okay. A lot of people want to argue their way into, you talked about these meetings, for example, these meetings. I understand very well the role that chaos plays in, or the ability to tangle with chaos. In other words, chaos gets a vote. Chaos gets a big vote. Okay. Fate gets a huge vote. Like 80% of the vote is on fate. And then you just kind of tangle. You bob and weave, and then you succeed or you fail. And then you pick yourself up again. You try. Over time, you're going to succeed more than you fail. So goes the deal. So when
you mean
people
fail more than you succeed?
Oh, really? Is that how it happens?
Yeah. No, you're going to fail more than you succeed, right?
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Right. I was just saying you got that backwards, but yeah.
Indeed, and hopefully the compounding of your successes will lead you to your decision that you're trying to get to. Right now, the thing that I find people doing in some of these, let's say it's a time of famine, okay? Things are not as great as it used to be, okay? We're no longer in the time of 0% interest and massive stimulus. We're no longer in the time where everything, land of milk and honey, okay? People sit down and they're in these sessions strategizing, and maybe the boss is there, the boss of the boss of the boss or whatever. And people are overly concerned with, again, the right strategy, the right idea, or if the boss says something like, how about you guys try this? They want to argue that thing down. And it's like, dude, year after year after year, how many of the decisions that were made in such strategy sessions have panned out the way we thought it was going to pan out? When we said, hey, we're going to pivot to this particular market, and that's where our money is going to come from, how often did it actually happen that that's where the money came from? Okay? People forget this. In other words, people forget chaos. Okay? So they want to argue in this strategy session about the right strategy and how you can't, because it's like, dude, just shut up. It doesn't matter. Just take it. He said that, fine. Say, okay, cool. We'll try that. We'll try that. And you will try it. Or you will kind of, again, give him some kind of, it's not spinning again, but you go in there and find the essence of what is being asked. Do your research, do the trial, come back with something. But you know fully well that, hey, let's Q2 and Q3 and let's get to the end of the year. Let's contend with the chaos till the end of the year, and let's see what happens. People get overly bogged down in these meetings about, oh, well, you can't say we should do that. Oh, this is not right. That's wrong. It's like, look, 90% of what you guys are saying, especially if it's about the future, is wrong. Don't bother with it. I don't know if, because I'm giving particular context here, if the context resonates with anyone, but generally speaking, you need to be fine with chaos. That's number one. And number two, you need to be okay just taking the whipping from time to time. You're taking the whipping from the market, taking the whipping from life. it just is what it is. You just got to survive that season. Survival is a huge part of it. No one wants to be thriving all the time and flying above everything. It's like, no, just take it. Okay, 2023 is going to be a tough year. Fine. It's not the first tough year that ever happened. I don't know if I'm I kind of took it to an adjacent rail there, but I don't know if I'm making sense there, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah, it makes sense. Chaos is a factor. You don't know the future. And even if you make a perfect decision based on the factors that you believe to be there, all it takes is an X factor to change everything. And that's going to read as a wrong decision. It's going to read as something that you didn't plan for. And that's just that's just what happens.
100%. People I don't like the hype during the good years, right? Because I know that was also chaos. You know, it's like, yeah, I kind of like was a little bit right. You know, I saw what was coming like 2 seconds before other people saw it, and I put myself in the right position. Fate favors the bold type stuff. But the people whom are all super worried about the downtimes are people who don't understand that, dude, the uptimes were not really your doing per se. Again, if we're being honest, right? Not, and again, we're talking about not you being a BAN somewhere. We're talking about you have put yourself in, you've done the right kinds of things, and you're putting yourself in the room with high performing people whom are trying to do big things in the world. Okay. So this is not a question of, oh, you saying that I shouldn't be prepared. It's like, dude, if we're not prepared at all, you would not even be in this room. You would not even have the chance to be doing any of these things. But when you're in that situation where you're fully prepared, you got all your ducks in a row, then you should be humble enough to understand that the good year you just had, that was 80% chaos. Okay. And a lot of times also, the bad year that you may have, sometimes it's not just chaos, but it's like the result of some dumb idea that you made, some dumb thing that you did. And you should be able, I'm always looking at the negative. I look at the negative, and when good things are happening, I look at the fact that it was chaos. Like, I just find it to be more psychologically healthy to be there. Just keep on moving. Just keep on moving, man. Forget all the accolades and, oh, this year, you were in the president's club and you were top whatever. Okay. Watch out for next year. See what happens. If you're not
All right, so
not honest. Yeah.
So I have another office example. So Will Ferrell comes in to take over for Michael Scott. Michael is moving to Colorado or whatever with his his fiance, and man, I can't believe I'm not sure why I can't think of this guy's name, but Will Ferrell's character is going to be the new manager, and he's a total idiot and has some serious character flaws, some serious like whatever, and you know it, but that's what that show is. Okay. So anyhow, what he does is, he gets in and then he sets up this sort of, he's got the inside, like the inner circle, and he doesn't tell anybody, he doesn't make any announcements about getting in the inner circle. He just starts, like, in his office, he'll only invite a certain group of people in there, and then the way that he sort of shuns folks is by just, if they do something he doesn't like, they're not in the inner circle, right? So he wants to, he's trying to make them, basically, cater to whatever his goofy whims are and stuff like this, right? It's a kind of super toxic type of thing. So what happens is, I don't know, Jim, or it probably wasn't Jim because he's pretty stoic. I think it was Kevin. Kevin ends up in the inner circle, and he's all celebrating. Yes, I'm in the inner circle. But then, like the next day, like he's not in the inner circle anymore because it wasn't based on any any real stuff. There was no, it wasn't merit based. It was just total stupid based. So, so what's the point in celebrating for something, and then the next day now you're supposed to be super down? It's much better to just be balanced and to just roll with the punches. Just whatever happens, this is what happening. I know I'm doing a good job, not because I'm perfect, not because I make always the right decisions, but because I do my homework, and on the balance of averages, I'm making the best decision possible. That's all you can do.
100%. And don't be too afraid of people. People are very afraid of disappointing the people above them. Trust me, the people above you are happy that you're consistent.
Oh, right. The people above you are already disappointed in you, so don't worry about that. I can't believe I fired this bum.
That too. And it's like, no, just survive the season. Okay, hibernate. Anyways, let's continue. Number 4 here, talking about escalating. Okay, you escalate the problem instead of diffusing it. Okay.
If you ready? When is you got 5 projects you're managing, 3 projects you're managing, and come rather than it getting right there or it getting addressed with you and no longer coming up again, you create work for 4 other people. Meaning, yeah, well, listen, Patrick said no. This it's his call. Oh, because those people said no, or these people, that customer's gonna say, talk to this person, let me talk to that person, let me talk to this person. Your job of handling, you could have squashed it right there. You just got 3 additional people that have to do a 90-minute Zoom with that same individual, and you cost a lot of money for the company and a waste of time because you're afraid to lead and manage that issue and lead it right there. We have a person in the company, in my insurance company, Tikrin, Shoutout. This guy is extremely good at leading and processing the issue there. And so not kind of like brushed aside and so why are you complaining? No, he addresses it. They process it and he handles it, and it doesn't roll up to me. It used to be a time 10 years ago where 7 to 5 out of 10, then 3 out of 1 and I have to be kind of somebody because he processed the issue right there and it's addressed and we move on. Another sign you're afraid of leading.
What do you think about escalation? Are you out there escalating stuff?
That was pretty jumbled. It was hard to make out a lot of what it was that he was saying. Can you sort of recap what he was saying?
Was it due to Borging or anything? Just want to know.
Yeah, it was Borging.
Crap. Anyways, he was basically, I think that the title, number 4, escalating, was kind of self-explanatory. Point being, rather than you deal with an issue that comes up, you want to either you escalate it to a higher up, or let's say we're in a team, you, me, Dr. Thunder, blah blah blah, we're in a team, and the decision was no. Out of a 3 said no, 2 said yes, right? So it has to be no. And then we go to the client, and rather than you simply telling the client no, you say, hey, it was Dr. Thunder and this other person that said no, right? So now the client is like, oh, well, let me talk to Dr. Thunder. Now you've added work. It's like you've added more meetings that need to happen, more people that need to get talked to, blah, 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 rather than you diffuse the situation, diffuse the bomb. Don't let it metastasize, blow up. So escalating up, which is something that I tend to have the opposite problem, or I tended to have the opposite problem of like, just I want to handle stuff. Like I'm a bit of a control freak. Like I don't want to have to bring people in or do any of that crap or go talk to somebody else about that's just too much nonsense. But shout out to technological chaos, and then I'm asking you, Dr. Thunder, what you think about escalating in general. But shout out to Technological Chaos. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Say, I see it from Peter Thiel, the perspective of what are problems which you have great solutions that 5 people in the room agree with you, but everyone else disagree with you. Emergence of great opportunities. Peter Thiel, the perspective of what are problems which you have great solutions that 5 people in the room agree, but everybody else disagrees. Yeah, one of the things that Peter Thiel emphasizes is, the contrarian. He tries to look for contrarian people, people that, like what is an idea that you have that most people would disagree with, and things of that nature. But Dr. Thunder, what do you think about the escalation deal as opposed to diffusing it yourself?
Yeah, I much prefer to diffusing it myself. And this could turn into, okay. So sometimes, and I don't think people recognize this, but you can have circumstances where somebody comes to you and you can either stoke the flames or you can put the fire out by providing some nuance, some perspective. Well, something that you might not be thinking about is such and such this, and this is kind of their style to do that thing this way, but don't worry about it. It tends to work. I mean, so you could do that and be the peacemaker, or you could be the fire stoker, right? So part of the escalating thing in my mind, it's the person that rather than doing what they could do to squash the scenario, they blow it up for no good reason other than some political stuff, or they don't like somebody or whatever else it is. The thing is that stuff works negatively against everyone, right? So in addition to creating the necessity to have additional meetings and all that, and that's a waste of time. In addition to that, if outside people are aware that this dysfunction exists or that there's some goofy stuff going on, that reflects poorly on everybody that's in the unit, or that part of the company or whatever. So, yeah, so I think there's lots of reasons why just doing what it is that you can do to resolve an issue rather than the need to like bring other people in all the time. Now there are scenarios where you don't have a choice. The person's being belligerent. Situation is, above your pay grade, whatever. But other than that, yeah, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. There are people who have this corporate culture where they love to escalate crap, and something happened. We could have resolved it, but you had to tell this other person, and then the other person, and especially look like good years cover all kinds of sins. Revenue covers a multitude of sins, and when things are not so rosy, people are looking for fingers to point to, and that's when people tend to want to like, you were Dr. Thunder was 5 minutes late for the meeting. That's why I think we lost the deal. Okay. And you could think that, but rather than address it with Dr. Thunder, you go tell Dr. Thunder's boss that he was late for the meeting. That's why we lost the deal. It's like, God, Jesus Christ.
You want to take credit for all the great ideas or the work that people on your team do to you, and then you say, well, I came up with that. I came up with this. We had a person that we were working with many, many years ago. He would come to meetings and he would present an idea, and I'm like, oh my God, those 3 ideas. Who came up with these ideas? He says, oh, I came up with all these ideas myself. I'm like, that's freaking incredible. So every week he's coming up with these ideas. Wow, this is sick. This guy's a solid guy. Let me tell you what happened. All of a sudden, one of the ideas I said no to, I'm walking out and one of our employees comes and says, hey, Pat, can I ask you a question? Yeah. One of the ideas I put a lot of time into, and I heard you rejected the idea. I want to find out why. I'm like, what's that? The idea was about that. I'm not going to say the idea. Yeah. Huh. Idea. The other guy under the bus, but I kept it here. Another person told about an idea that to this person. So one day I had a meeting because I'm not afraid of conflict. I addressed it with this person. I said, hey, question for you. Who came up with that idea? I came up with the idea. Who came up with this idea? I came up with the idea. You sure Johnny didn't come up with the idea? You sure the other one, Larry, didn't come up with the idea? So I'm curious. Why do you take credit for the ideas that others came up with? What's the you realize that's a sign of a person that's not ready to be a leader. You can give credit. It's not like you're going to get in trouble. If somebody's a true leader, they'll say something like, let me tell you, Larry came up with an incredible idea that I think we ought to consider. He said, What do you think about this? I think it's a great idea. Wow, that's good. Now I know how humble you are, how confident you are, how comfortable you are in your own skin. You're at the next level. You're building. So this next one, it's a fear to lead. And you know what it is? Deflecting blame. Rather than saying, you know what?
Okay, so number 5, and that's probably where we'll end this portion of it. But number 5, taking credit for other people's ideas. Have I been guilty of? This is an interesting one. This is an interesting one. Taking credit for other people's ideas. Okay. Well, what are your thoughts about that, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I think that's it's totally bogus, and I know people have done that, taken credit of my ideas frequently, and that can be anywhere from. So I am a okay. So you're in a certain setting. Maybe you're in a rehearsal, or maybe you're I don't know, doing whatever you're doing, and there's certain dynamics that you know, right? And because I pay attention and I listen, stuff like timing and I have a certain sense of humor, and I've figured out when to say certain things that get a certain kind of response, right? But sometimes what happens is if you say it, then there's no reaction. If somebody else says it, then all of a sudden there's a reaction to it, right? And part of that is just like knowing what the pecking order is, knowing what people expect you, the kind of stuff that they expect you to say, because that sometimes is part of what makes something funny. But often what will happen is I'll say something, but it's not loud enough for everybody to hear. Somebody else heard me say it and they repeat it, and then it gets laughs. Okay. Now that seems like it's not a big deal, right? And I don't really take it as a big deal. But if the same person keeps doing that and not clarifying, saying, hey, actually, this is the person over here that actually said that, if they keep doing that, then that tells you what you need to know. You know that's going to be a person that is not going to have any problem with stealing your ideas and representing them as their own. Right? Now, and maybe that seems like nitpicky and silly and stuff. I'm just suggesting that this is a way that you could sort of kind of tell based on people's behaviors, right? So there's that. As a leader, that's something that I don't do. I don't take credit for people's ideas. I tell people, hey, this is such and such's idea. A few years ago, this person over here, they're the one that thought of this. And that's a morale booster. It incentivizes people under you to say, okay, I can trust this guy. He's going to give me acknowledgement for these ideas. It motivates them to come up with ideas because, you're going to credit them in X, Y, and Z. All of that stuff is positive. It's healthy. And then it also creates a sense of sort of trust, because they trust that, since they trust that you're not going to represent that it's your idea and that you're going to tell them what it is, it's going to make them it's just a good thing. It's just it's good chemistry, and it's bad form to take credit for people's ideas. Besides the fact that it's not really the ideas that actually make a difference in most cases. It's the logistics. It's the follow through. It's the process. It's the structure. It's the organization. It's the sticking to it for way longer than other people want to stick to it. That's the stuff that actually produces the results. It's not actually usually the ideas. It's ideas are a dime a dozen. So that's like the least important aspect. Now, normie ham and eggers, they probably think that it's the idea that it's the most important thing. But folks that actually are in the ideas business, as it were, they know it's not the ideas. It's the structure that supports the ideas. That's actually what matters.
So. Structure that supports the ideas. Yes, indeed. Okay, so and we have 5 of those, and we might continue the rest of it next week on your channel, perhaps.
Yeah, sounds good.
So this has been about leadership, the most important aspect of which I say in my biased way is about decisions, decisiveness. And leadership has to do with whether people follow you or not. It's not a title thing and whatever. And I know that Patrick and perhaps some of our conversation has kind of been around corporate structures or structures of organizations and whatnot. But down to mammal level, do people want to follow you? There's certain psychological attributes that maybe fall under charm or charisma, being able to convince, communicate with people, and all these other kinds of things. Diplomatic, as we mentioned before. But decisiveness is the one that is in the shortest supply. And I find that, look, if you can tweak that one, look, because these things are psychological, okay, not everybody has the same, not everybody's LeBron James of decisiveness, but you want to maximize your ability to be decisive. Or if you're like, look, my thing is just charm, I'm short on the decisiveness a little bit, then you're like, okay, maximize the charm. Know that you're going to need to outsource the decisiveness, either by partnering up with somebody or leaning on something, whatever it may be, right? Typically, we know our limits. Okay, so know your limit with regards to this stuff, but you could always be a little bit more decisive, because at the end of the day, you have to lead your life, right? And you're going to outsource the decisiveness, especially if you're a man. You're going to outsource the decisiveness to your wife and kids, have them decide everything for you, can't make a decision. Okay, I was listening to some lady talk about, she's a psychology type person talking about different personalities or whatever, and she keeps referring to her dad and how indecisive he was, and like it's still bothering her. It's like, you don't want to be that dad. Okay, shout out to the dad out there. She uses him as it's a personality type example. Okay, and there are people out there that are just like that, don't want to make a decision, and they're always concerned about consensus and all these other kinds of things. They're great to be around. Everybody wants to go to their parties, but nobody wants to follow them anywhere, right? That kind of a thing. But when it comes to leadership, decisiveness is super duper important. Dr. Thunder, what you got going on for the rest of the week? Is tomorrow the Two Dads React, or is that Tuesday? I keep forgetting. Thunder Starts is Tuesday, right? Two Dads React is Thursday.
Yeah, and I did a panel version of Thunder's Thoughts last night. Folks can check that out. It was about women's studies, and I covered an article from the New York Times from 1984, April 22nd, 1984, and it was detailing the sort of process and the progress of this sort of enshrinement of women's studies programs, at least up until 1984, some of the problems, and then some of the problems with assessment and stuff. And I used that as a way to sort of show that anytime, because obviously women's and gender studies programs are all over the place now, right? But at one point, there wasn't even one program. And of course, it's the feminist stuff and whatever. But my point was, it takes a long time and can take a long time for things to change in a particular way. And so, that as a sort of juxtaposition from certain talking points that have that in discussions that happen in the Black manosphere that often gets contextualized is, okay, when are we going to start doing something? And yeah, I think we could do more, but when you look at other sort of movements, you'll notice that there's a period of time where there's a lot of intellectual capital developed, and then you have to have a mechanism, you have to have a machine, you have to have, deployment, you have to have all of these things. So even once you start getting that stuff in place, it can take a long time. So that was the point. But they've been massively successful, I think, much to the detriment of, I think, to American society in many ways. It's been quite damaging to a lot of things. But anyhow, that was that show last night. And then what else did we talk about? I'm sorry. Two Dads React is tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And see what else is happening. Released a recent short. Check that out. Also, Car Thunder, another episode this morning. Ordinarily on Thursday, I would also have a Tenor Talks, but that's not going to happen because I have a rehearsal. It's almost like at the same time. So anyhow,
Was it
but I will be doing the Two Dads.
I saw a meme recently about another train in Ohio, and I was wondering if it was two trains the first time or another train thing happened again recently.
Yeah, there's another train. There's so much weird train stuff that is going on. And of course, not just in Ohio, but in other places not too far away. And you remember there's something up in Michigan where same thing, train derailment, in hazmat, and then it polluting the water supply, and also it's airborne in animals. So one of these locations, 45,000 animals died. 45,000 animals. And one of the questions we were asking last week is, if 45,000 animals died, what happened to the people? It seems like something, that seems like a lot of carnage for people not to be affected. And then how come that's not an angle that the media is discussing?
Because I want to talk about Zelensky. It's like, I think somebody said recently, Boys in the Hood, thinking the end of Boys in the Hood. Doughboy was talking about, his brother getting killed. And it's like, in the news, I heard this stuff about violence in a foreign land, and I didn't hear anything about my brother. Like, similar situation here, right? Where it's like, okay, there's stuff going on. Right. But you want to talk about Ukraine.
Yeah,
and stuff like
At one point I thought you had said Saul Alinsky, and I was like,
Saul Alinsky,
well,
my
yeah, that's kind of sort of what
kind of
we're talking
obscure.
about. But rules for radicals, right?
Rules for radicals. Yeah. And by the way, it's I respect. It's kind of funny that you mentioned Saul Alinsky now, but I respect guys like Saul Alinsky because they were honest. You know what I mean? It's like unlike
Right.
woke type BS type DI all that. It's like, dude, I'm here to take over shit. Okay, I'm here to do some stuff in community organizing.
Let's go.
And here's how we're gonna do it. And you ask him about it, and he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong with that?" You know, you don't have to agree with him. You don't have to be in his team. But this is a guy that's honestly telling you how he's gonna go about it. I like him. I like Noam Chomsky. I like real men of the left in that regard. And I think there's very few of them, if any, left around that just actually are what they are. They're telling you what they're about, and this is how we're gonna do it. These days is all just BS. Anyways, that's but yeah.
By the way, yesterday, and I watched the rest of it earlier this morning or something, or afternoon or something, while I was working on something else. Chris Rock, his his latest special, right? Selective Outrage. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw him going in on Will there, and
Yeah.
Jada, and concussion and this and that, and picking on the little guy, all that good stuff. It was actually I think it was actually pretty good, and it's
it was my favorite. I love Chris Rock. Chris Rock is Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. For my money, those are my guys. Those are like my comedy spirit animals. Like they say the kind of stuff that they say the kind of stuff, and they have that kind of angle that I think. I don't think of it that way. I'm not a comedian, but the kinds of points that they make are the kind of points that I find very much interesting and thought-provoking. But Chris hasn't been as funny for maybe 10 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of, in my mind, this put him back. It kind of put him back like on that Mount Rushmore for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought it was a great show. And he was talking about his daughter, and he went to the principal, of the private school. He spoiled his girls and all this, and he saw her laughing because of something going down, and she was going to get away with it. So he actually told the principal, without telling her, to kick her out. And so the principal, of course, the school kicked her out. So then she had to apply for other schools, other high schools. We're talking about get kicked out of high school. And then when she applied for college, she had to explain why she got kicked out of high school. And that was something, and maybe it seems harsh, but she's like freaking super spoiled and has everything and didn't have to work for anything. I mean, it has to do what their parents say and stuff like that, but didn't have to really do anything, didn't have to struggle, didn't want for anything. And that was the way that he got the message through. And of course it worked. And he talked about how much of a, good person, and, that she is now, and just a lot different than she was, those years in high school, prior to kicked out. But Yeah, it's a good joint. And he talks about the age gap stuff, and which is a topic that gets discussed in the sort of manosphere spaces frequently. Um, he talked the age gap stuff, and he was talking about how much harder it is to deal with. You know, I mean, he said it 45, 50-year-old women, which is, he's older than that, but that would be the age range that he would date, right? And he was talking about how much easier it is to deal with a 25-year-old, and how much less baggage and less
Because
X, Y, and Z.
it's taking advantage of her.
Right. Power dynamic and all this. Man, it is funny too, because I saw a clip with Real Femme Sapien, and I can't remember this show, but it's another one of these shows where a guy, this dude, he has like a panel of girls, and sometimes he'll have like another dude on the panel. Like he had Modern Life Dating. He had him on the panel one time, but Femme Sapien was on there. And she basically is carrying the water of the dude's perspective, so they didn't need any more. But apparently, and I guess she's 28 now, and her husband is 51, right? And so there was a segment where they were talking about age gap, and then of course there's a 23-year-old, baddie or whatever on the panel, who's admittedly a bisexual or whatever, and she is just talking about how it's like there's something wrong with an older guy constantly dating younger girls. Like that must say something about him. Yeah, it says that he, look, if a guy has that as an option, he's going to do that because guys see women in a particular age range is universally that's the age range that they're most attractive. Right? And that's an evolutionary biology thing. We're wired that way because that's the age range where they're the most fertile. Right? So it's interesting, that whole age gap thing is still real touchy business, especially in the Black community. Unless the age gap is flipped, where the woman is older, then they celebrate that. Which, and I'm not, people do what they want to do. I'm not opposed to whatever folks want to do. And I have dated older. I have tended to date older. My dating history. But it's for a different reason though. It's because I could not handle having a conversation with somebody younger than me. I'm just being honest. Like when I was dating, even the girls that were even similar age to me, or old, or even the ones that were a little older than me, they all want to talk about the same. I'm not saying every woman wants to talk about vapid stuff. I'm saying the ones that I encountered were, it was just, I couldn't have meaningful conversations. They didn't understand anything. They didn't know politics. They didn't know anything, and that just makes it very difficult to have like a meaningful conversation. Not that you necessarily have to have those kind of deep conversations with your spouse all the time or something. It just depends on what the dynamic in your relationship is. But I don't know. It's just, of course, people will be surprised to know that Joseph was likely in his mid-40s when he married Mary, who was 13 or 14. Yeah, there is that.
Robin the Cradle. All right.
Oh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Catch us next week. Getting Ish Done, Dr. Thunder's channel. We're going to finish this idea about leadership here. Very, very important. Again, it's not about positions and titles and whatnot. It's about your ability to be decisive, take responsibility, work well with people, and all that other good stuff. Until next time, peace. We're out.
Peace out.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.